Hi, everyone. Welcome back. And thank you for being here with me today as I open up this conversation about something that I felt was kind of vulnerable as it pertains to some personal events in my own life, as well as something that I think has been impacting the collective. And I want to share that prior to recording this, I did pray. I prayed for the right messages to come through. And to share things from a holistic perspective to the best that I can, to give a more balanced outlook on things. So today's topic is about narcissistic abuse. And if you are someone who has ever been impacted by narcissistic abuse of any kind, this conversation is for you. And hopefully it will bring more compassion into the situation and also help you understand why those kinds of situations are very complex, and also how we can rely on God, on a higher power to help intervene and to bring peace and a peaceful resolution to whatever that situation is. So, the first thing I want to start off by saying is that I am someone who's been impacted by narcissistic abuse for a large part of my life, I would say up until last July. And I want to make that clear distinction because breaking through that cycle was not easy. And I know that a lot of times we can be aware of certain patterns, we can be present to different things that come up, but we still might find breaking those cycles to be challenging. And of course, it requires moving through the resistance because what happens is that anytime our soul, our spirit knows that we're on the brink of some powerful transformation that could be really positive for us, something really beautiful, resistance can come up, friction. And when you're used to a certain way of living, feeling as though there can be this new story, the story that's much more empowering, where you're much more alive and full of vitality and peace and loving, healthy connections are flowing into your life. That might seem out of reach until you recognize that you are a child of God. And no matter what has happened to you in the past, your story can be rewritten by God. God can do that. He has the power to do that. And so I want to share what transpired, how I was able to break that cycle, and also praying that this message reaches the right people so that other people can recognize that it's possible for you to break that cycle as well, and to make sure that when you do, you're helping other people as well. So for me, for anyone who doesn't know, I've been pretty vocal about it on my podcast, The Voice That Sees, about having had thyroid cancer at the age of 21. And, I've been healthy since. I'm so grateful for the way God has worked on me and my spirit and also brought me so many miracles that I didn't even know to ask for. So thank you, God. And having come through that journey and now looking back in retrospect and looking at how at that time that I was diagnosed, I was in PA school training to become a physician assistant. And I was going through different forms of abuse in this relationship that I was in for no more than 6 months because I knew it wasn't the right relationship. And then also this preceptor that I later encountered, who again, it was just these constant cycles of abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, taking it back and then doing the same things, behaviors that weren't changing, and constant cycles of saying things that were condescending, being harsh and critical, and also noticing how these patterns weren't playing out with everyone. It was usually towards certain people. And often it would be people who were nice people, nicer people, people who were genuinely kind, not that fake, how are you? And then just walking away. No, people who say, how are you? And then pause to see what you're going to say, to listen to you. It was usually those people who were being impacted. And I noticed in my case that no matter how many times I would try to open up conversation to create healthy resolution, no matter how many times I forgave, no matter how many times they said sorry, the behaviors just wouldn't change. And the craziest part is that the stories would change, almost as though the person who was resembling these narcissistic traits would suddenly act like they're the victim, like you're the problem, not them. They cannot take any blame. And I also need to preface this with I'm not a mental health counselor. I am a licensed physician assistant, but not in the mental health space. And so, wherever you are in your journey, take this in the way that resonates. Also, remember your power in seeking professional support, whether it's through a counselor or some other form of therapy, whatever works for you, whatever type of healing modality that you need. This conversation is more so to tie in my journey, how it could potentially help you, maybe just spark open a curiosity as to what else is out there. And also remember that, yes, we are powerful. And then when we surrender and truly allow God to move through us, miracles can unfold. And so I say this as someone who's been really stubborn. I've been so stubborn that as I went through some of those really challenging times, and I say this with love. I'm not saying this, oh, I'm stubborn to be hard on myself. But, when you get into the personal development space, you're constantly taught that you're responsible for all of it. Well, if you're seeing this happen in your reality, you're causing it. So you need to understand your power in this and all this stuff. And I just want to share, I'm not trying to bring any religion up and say that one thing is right, one thing is wrong, or anything like that, but more so to share that while being in the personal growth and development space since I was maybe 19 or 20, and also dabbling in the world of new age spirituality, I can see that a lot of things are just creating these loops and people don't actually find what they're truly looking for. They don't actually receive the transformation they're looking for. And it could be this subtle transformation that lasts temporarily, but not the long lasting transformation that happens when we actually are transformed in the spirit, which only God can do. And so I wanted to share this because the way things happened last year, I finally feel ready to share the story because I can recognize that a large part of narcissism and how it plays on a global scale too. We can see this in our world leaders and some of the big world events happening right now, that there's oppression on this planet. There has been. And a lot of it is to keep expression suppressed. It's to keep the energy of the divine suppressed. And going back to the events, and I'll share the story and how this all pieces together, but going back to the events that happened when I was 21, and at that time playing to victim mentality. Why is this happening to me? What's going on? Why me? All this stuff. And that was part of the journey. That's part of the heroine journey or the hero's journey, depending on what your gender is or how you resonate with that. And so when I was going through that journey initially, I just didn't understand why, no matter how much empathy or kindness I exuded, it was just never enough. It was never enough for a narcissist. And a lot of times, for anyone who has separated themselves from a narcissist, you know that there's still lingering dynamics afterwards. Yeah, you break that cycle, but then there's other things you have to look at. You have to look at yourself, your sense of self-worth, your self-esteem. And it's almost as if you're going through this process of repair. It's not that you're broken or that you need to be fixed, but it's as though you're looking at your psyche and understanding, wait, who am I before I thought I needed to mold myself to please society, to please my parents, to please my culture, to please these unrealistic expectations of many systems that have been run by narcissists that ironically can't be pleased and no one wins. And when you start navigating that area, that domain, and start asking yourself these questions, you might be surprised at what comes up and what gets uncovered. And so I went into the world of yoga. I went into the world of Reiki. And I want to share that these things were really helpful. They helped bring calm. They helped bring Zen. I also teach yoga. I also offer sound healing. And I love being able to offer these healing modalities. And I've also been humbled to see that sometimes, and this happens to many people, I noticed that in certain classes, you might attend a class, such as a yoga class, and you notice one student just ends up walking out for whatever reason. Maybe things came up, or maybe they were just having a day. There could be so many things, right? We don't know. However, something I've come to realize is that after having gone through my own journey with working with so many different healers, so many different mentors, sometimes you walk away feeling disappointed. And maybe you had certain expectations, people didn't meet them, and then you're like, why did you spend all this money to work with this person? And then you didn't even receive the results that you thought were being promised in some way, or at least marketed in that demeanor. And after having that experience multiple times, and again, this is why I'm laughing about this idea of being stubborn, because sometimes as humans, we can be stubborn. We feel that if we've been let down enough times, we will take charge of our lives. We will do it all. We will forge ahead. We will push through. And suddenly our life will change. And I have to say, we are powerful beings and we can co create these beautiful realities for ourselves. And yet, haven't you ever created something and then you just got tired of it after a while? It's like, okay, you did something, but something still felt missing. And I feel that right now, collectively, so many people are seeking the divine. They're seeking truth, not the truth that we're often sold, but real, authentic truth. And so many people are seeking this deeper connection to God, to Goddess, to the divine, to this higher power, and to the source of divine love and light, to that sense of oneness within ourselves, the oneness that connects all beings on this planet. And so, having moved through certain things last year, as well as the start of this year, I want to share that what I found is that sometimes, even when we're going to these healing modalities, which a lot of new age gurus and healers will sell, we can still be disappointed. And it's because we're not actually seeking their program. We're seeking a deeper connection with God. It doesn't mean that people don't have something beautiful to share. Many people have medicine from their lineage. Many people have God-given gifts that they're here to share, and it can be absolutely transformative. But there's a certain kind of transformation that only God can take care of. And if we're willing to surrender and truly let God lead. And what I mean by that, it doesn't mean you just sit or you lie down and you're just not doing anything. It means that when you start taking actions, it's not coming from this place of trying to prove something, that you're trying to prove that you're some powerful leader, entrepreneur, or visionary. You're not trying to prove that you can do this. You're not doing something to get back at someone or to replace some history that you've had. It's more so you're really doing it to be of service. And I feel that, I will bring this up, I feel that the astronauts that went to space for 10 days, Artemis 2, and did this beautiful, they went on this beautiful mission, risked their lives. And I found something in me getting activated by hearing them talk about their faith, talking about God, talking about how the moon is part of so many different cultures on this planet, talking about the indigenous. I felt something move through me, which is that when people, humans, just like you and I, were sent the farthest that humans on Earth have ever been in space, orbiting the moon and going to the darker aspects, the fact that they talked about faith, the fact that they talked about our connection to one another as humans on this planet, how we should be working together instead of against one another, it shifted something in me, which is understanding that faith is so powerful and faith is one of the missing pieces in so many people's lives. And it's okay. I get it. As a logical person, many of us have this where we want the data. We want to understand things before they happen. We want to see evidence. And yet there are some things we don't need evidence for. And I feel one of those things is our faith. So last year, let's just put it this way, I was noticing that there were many relationships coming undone in my life. And a lot of it felt to be out of my control. And if you've ever been in a space where you find that some things are just coming undone and there's just nothing you can really do to stop it, it's almost as though you're being forced to surrender. No one can actually force you to surrender, right? But you feel as if you just got to let go. And in that moment of letting go, a new world is emerging and presenting itself. And it's a beautiful world, but our human nature is that we try to interfere, especially when we're resisting. And so I noticed that a lot of the relationships that were coming undone in my life were imbalanced relationships that were not even good for me. There wasn't actual intimacy. There was a lot of taking, but not as much providing. And they were relationships that just kind of came in when, those people needed something, but rarely did they ever really show up for me. And the part where I take ownership is that I did make myself available for a lot of that, for a lot of my life up until last year. And it's because, at one point it was all I knew. It was all I knew to constantly give. Some of it was from the sense of feeling control, especially as an imbalanced caregiver and not being modeled healthy ways of caregiving. And this isn't to be hard on anyone who has provided care for me, because as we can see, a lot of people have not been given healthy tools for understanding emotional intelligence, understanding that every person is unique. How do we provide care as a mother, as a father, as a teacher, as a mentor? Many people haven't been given these tools. So it's not to blame anyone, but more so to share that these things happened. And now it was up to me to look at it and ask myself, well, how are we going to move forward in a different direction? And of course, God really did take over my life. And I feel that he's always been in charge of my life, but I could feel his energy much more powerfully last year. And in surrendering and spending more time in solitude, in letting myself release a lot of these imbalanced relationships, and then also feeling the sense of peace wash over me, and not the kind of peace that comes about after a sound bath or a yoga class, which again, I just want to reiterate, I'm also a yoga teacher. I understand that yoga is very powerful, and it was an instrumental part of my journey, and it still is, because I have a physical body. I like to move. I like to shift energy. And yet there is a peace that is beyond all understanding, a peace that makes no sense. And that's a peace that we can only feel from God. And when you feel that, you understand that situations don't have to be perfect for you to feel that peace. You understand that your life circumstances don't have to be perfect for you to feel that peace. You can feel that peace right now. And so the more I started to feel that peace and noticing that whatever was leaving my life, whatever was being removed from my life was good for me and healthy for me, I understood that space was being created for healthier connections to come in. But here's the thing. If you've ever been impacted by narcissistic abuse and it's been, let's say, potentially a lifelong pattern or cycle, maybe you even witnessed it with your parents, perhaps it was a generational cycle, then it can be a little bit more challenging to break. And you might be seeing the same pattern play out with different people. And each time it comes up, it's like you could say something, you can stand up for yourself, but suddenly your throat feels constricted. It's like you have that window of opportunity to say the thing that you need to say, but you just can't say it for whatever reason. It's like you hold yourself back, or you felt like you're held back. So for me, what happened last year through a mysterious sequence of events is I was, so first I put out the intention. I put out the intention that I was ready for whatever was getting in the way of me fulfilling God's destiny to be removed in peace and in love. And one thing led to another. And I was guided to work with shamans from the Bribri tribe here in Talamanca, the Talamanca region in Costa Rica. And I've worked with them before. And it's a beautiful indigenous tribe, and they're really connected to nature, to cacao. And they also deeply respect women. It's actually known that many women give or pass on the teachings. And so it's a very beautiful tribe. I was able to visit them in 2023 and learn from them. And when I was rerouted to work with them, I knew something was going to shift, because when I worked with them years ago, things did start to move in my life in a much more beautiful way. And so I felt resistance to working with them again, but I knew that if I was led, if I prayed to God, then perhaps this is the right direction to go in. And I'm also understanding that different religions don't believe in shamanism. Some people think that you're not supposed to meddle with all these things. There's so many different viewpoints. I would say, for the sake of this conversation, just be open to what resonates and leave what doesn't. It's not to tell you what you should practice or what you shouldn't. It's more so to share what has helped me, and perhaps this could help someone else. So I worked with the Bree tribe, and after telling them my intentions, I didn't tell them all the things that were happening behind the scenes, like some of the things that I was seeing, such as the chaos, the drama, people trying to bring drama into my life, and me saying no. At this point, I was unavailable for it. I didn't tell them any of these things. I just told them my intention. But they came back with me. And the person who was interpreting, and I'd met him before, he's one of the grandsons, I believe, of the master shaman. And he said, who's this energy vampire who keeps trying to come back into your life any which direction they can? I'm not going to specify the details because I want to maintain confidentiality in this, but still speak to my truth and my story. So the second he came back with that, I knew exactly who this person was. And he said, actually, I feel like there's quite a bit of this in your life. And I just didn't deny it. I said, yeah, there has been. And the moment the shaman revealed this to me, I felt power becoming unlocked. And I know that true power isn't dependent on anything outside of us. But sometimes, especially if you've gone through these loops in your life, we need to be mirrored back. We need to feel seen. We need to feel held and supported. For things as severe as narcissistic abuse, especially when you're dealing with a certain spectrum to a certain extreme, you hear about some people, for instance, I'm just giving this as an example. You hear about some people who've been dealing with someone who's abused them for decades, and you're thinking from outside in, you can see, like, leave this person, just go. Why are you still here? But it's not easy for that person who's been so used to what is an entanglement and enmeshment with this person, especially if it's been a pattern, a cycle. And what I'll go into in this video is also how it can be demonic influence. And that's murky territory that you're dealing with. And so it can be helpful to receive empowering support with people who know what they're doing, with people who are experienced in what they're doing. And so I would never let anyone do any type of energy work on me. It has to be an experienced master healer, a shaman, not the fake new age gurus. That's a no in my world. So after working with the shaman, literally I felt power become unlocked. I could feel it largely around my solar plexus. And I want to share something that happened. In the midst of this clearing process, you're kind of sensitive and vulnerable because you're open. Again, I would not recommend this for just anyone. You have to be in tune with your energy and understand energetic boundaries and what's happening in this process to be able to move forward in an empowering way. And hopefully, if you're working with a truly empowering healer, they can help with that, to help you set those energetic boundaries, to give you tools on how to navigate forward. And to understand that it's not just about the cleanse, it's also about what actions do you take now? How do you show up in the world with this awareness that you have? What are the actions that you're now taking? Are you still spending time with the same people, or are you allowing yourself to move through the discomfort and open yourself up to better, more loving connections instead of people who practice dark arts and are just not doing good things? So all that happened. And when I had to face this person, I just want to share the weight of what happened in one of our, actually it was our last conversation. The way this person was talking to me is as though I don't matter, that you can talk to me like whatever and you can just get away with it. Have you ever encountered something like that, where someone literally talks to you as if you're dirt? Even dirt, I would say dirt on the ground. It's not something that you just are like, yuck, like everything matters on this planet. Everything carries consciousness. But for the sake of the story, just to give a reference, it's as though someone's treating you like scum. And I know a lot of times we're taught, well, you need to shift your energy. You need to have more self-respect and boundaries, all those things. Yes, you do need to have self-respect. You do need to create boundaries. And you have to understand it's not your fault. A lot of times I feel that this is kind of a weird thing in the personal growth and development space. But there's this fine line between taking accountability versus setting people up in this way that people think that they need to blame themselves or shame themselves for their lives and the way things have been. And I don't believe that. I believe that we do have the power to change our mindset, to believe in more empowering beliefs. And that's part of it. And the other part of it is understanding that sometimes we inherited patterns and cycles, things that, yes, we might have signed up for, as in, yes, we will be the generational cycle breaker. We're going to be helping to help uplift humanity. But still, in no way, as a child of God, does that mean that you're here to tolerate any form of abuse, that someone else just gets to get away with their bad behavior for whatever reason, even if they're having a difficult day. So just know that if this is you, if you feel seen in this, you're allowed to say no and you're allowed to walk away in peace. So when I dealt with this person on our last encounter, and I want to share some of the things that happened even prior to this encounter because I think this might be helpful. There was some emails going back and forth. And I remember in one of my emails, it's almost as though I got a taste of what it's like to be a narcissist. Before you make any judgment with what I just said, I just want to share that for a moment, I would say for maybe an hour, I suddenly felt I felt lifeless. I felt like I didn't really feel emotional, even though I'm a very emotional, empathic person. I felt robotic. I felt like I didn't care. And when I was typing emails, I sounded like that person. My emails were very straightforward. There were no feelings or emotions in it. And it was good to see what it's like to be able to share emails that are just straightforward, such as when you just want to do business. But then when I received an email, I noticed that this person sounded emotional and compassionate and expressive like me. And the moment I saw that, I was like, no, no way. I want my power back. I want my energy back. And when I spoke to the shaman, they said, okay, we need to untie this. And we're still doing the clearing. So you're watching the clearing as it's happening. And I was like, this is too much. I just want the cords cut. And after that, this person actually made a comment like, oh, I'm surprised you haven't been trying to reach out to me more and all this stuff. You know, it's like the narcissist trying to hook you back into the toxicity, into the push and pull dynamic. And this time, what I did, because I was having so much anxiety before this call, I had the cross out with me during that call. And I want to share, I'm not a Christian. I am a devout follower of Jesus Christ. And there's so much power in saying his name for anyone who needs to hear this. I don't like to label myself. I don't need to say, oh, I'm a Christian to believe in him. Jesus Christ found me. I'm going to link the podcast episode where I talk about my testimony. I'm going to share that in the caption below. And I want to share that by putting the cross on the table and literally praying to Jesus Christ before that call, I asked Jesus Christ, reveal to me what I need to see and help me be here with me on this call. Because sometimes I don't see things. Sometimes I just don't. I'm also human. And sometimes when someone is playing victim and playing into their sob story, I could potentially fall for it. Discernment isn't something that we just develop and we're done. It's not a one and done process. Discernment is something that we are continuing to refine through time, over time, through our experiences. And that's part of how we develop our wisdom and really embody it. And so I asked God to reveal what needed to be revealed. And in this call, instead of getting defensive and reacting to this person's narcissistic tactics, I saw this person for who he or she is. And in seeing that person as Jesus Christ revealed it to me, I was able to walk away. Not immediately. I still felt maybe I need to rethink it. Maybe I'm in the wrong. And I was almost about to take the blame, which is with what this person wanted. And the moment I heard it's time to let go, again, I felt this peace beyond all understanding. And I let go. I let go of that person. I let go of that opportunity. And what happened afterward is I was able to see how so many people are under narcissistic control. It's something that goes on in society, in many systems. It has kept people afraid to express themselves. It has kept people afraid from understanding and knowing and embodying their true power. And narcissists, just so you know, they benefit from this. I don't want to create this dynamic of us against them, because the true expansion and being able to walk with God and to honor the work that He's doing through us is not to shame them. I know it's easy right now to look at world leaders and be like, why did we vote for this person? And we put this person down, we make fun of them. I can assure you that it's important to pray for them too, because many of them are under demonic influence. And I was able to see that through what transpired. And so after all that happened, there was deep healing that happened. Internally, it's still ongoing in my finances, in my relationships, in the way that I was showing up, in my expression. Because for the first time, I was actually understanding what wants to be expressed authentically through me before I felt that I need to say the things that would please this person, even though, again, it's so futile, because nothing really pleases a narcissist except when you stroke their ego. And even then, it's temporary. It's like, okay, you stroked it. Now what? Stroke it again and again and again until your soul is almost empty. Your soul feels like, it's almost as if your soul is like, hey, finally it speaks up in your soul, is like, hey, can you stop killing me and instead let me be here to express myself freely, which is what I'm really here to do and be. And the moment you start to have that realization, it's like enough is enough. We're not going to fall for the BS. We're not going to fall for the stuff that people keep trying to push out to keep people afraid of knowing their true power. So where I'm being led to go forth with this message is that I ended up praying for this narcissist. I prayed for narcissism across the planet. I prayed that more people would seek God, that more people would understand the power of healing. And I also want to share gratitude for the shamans, because I wouldn't give the glory to them. I give my glory to God. But what I recognize is that they did help me. They supported me and they called it out just like this. There was no, oh, I think it could be this. I think it was like, this is it. And it's almost as though your soul knows it, but you might be afraid to speak to it because, again, these abusive patterns can live in the body. And so people might know it on a mental level, but they might not feel safe to express it, to reveal it, and to share it. And so yeah, I just wanted to share that. And let me just take a moment to pause because I feel that was a lot to share. So, where I'm being led to share the next part is trust in God, trust in a higher power, and have faith. The reason I'm moving straight into that is because I want to share that sometimes if you've gone through abuse enough times, the amount of anger and rage that can come up can be a lot to deal with, which is, again, why I feel that therapy and receiving professional support can definitely be helpful. And if you've been on the path long enough, at some point you might be asking yourself, is there any endpoint to this, or is it just more to deal with, more to uncover? And what I felt like with my walk with God is that I still like getting Reiki sometimes to feel that sense of energetic cleansing and energetic support. I teach yoga. I like feeling that I'm balanced as I move through my day. I'm feeling aligned with my intentions. I'm bringing that energy forth with me through the day. That's me co-creating the dance. That's me doing my part. And when I remember that God is leading me, I'm not leading God, God is leading me. That's what I feel personally. And I'm able to surrender to that. I feel that I don't need to know all the things. I don't need to fully believe in myself for my life to move in a positive direction. And I don't see that as weakness. I see that as courage and strength to know that the divine can move through me no matter what my story has been. The divine can have shifted me out of a generational cycle that was so debilitating and move me onto this path where I'm able to openly share my truth and speak it with courage and speak it with boldness and speak it authentically. That it's never too late to begin again, that I get to begin right here, right now. And this is my new story full of beautiful miracles and abundance and joy and happiness and blessings and amazing health and vitality and radiance and sunshine. And even as I'm saying this, I hope it is infusing life into someone, because it's not to say that life can't go through waves, right? Life is a journey, it's a beautiful journey. And we get to plant beautiful seeds. And when we allow God to move through us and help us live according to his will, of course, God doesn't want you working for a narcissist. Of course, God doesn't want you to push your own expression aside to fill or fulfill the agenda of someone who's almost eating away at your soul, and not just yours, probably many others too. It's just for some of us, it's like you've evolved enough that your soul is like, no, and you see things that others may not see. It doesn't mean you're better than anyone or, more superior than anyone because you might be more evolved. It just means that at this point, your soul is like, we can't do that. That's not what we signed up for. And we're also wise enough to know that in our own liberation, it can liberate other people too, because that's the power of consciousness. When you heal, the collective heals too. So, having moved forward from that, I truly felt that this walk with God helped me to take those steps to end that cycle and then understand that a lot of times with narcissism, the reason many narcissists are trying to control people is because they're not safe with people's creativity and with people's expression. Whatever I felt in that hour of feeling robotic, feeling unemotional, and I don't mean a moment of peace where you feel, you're at peace. So you might not be feeling like you need to cry or you don't feel any despair or anger. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm truly feeling like in that hour, I felt detached, like nothing matters, apathy. And it was a really scary place to be in. So that experience taught me to be sensitive towards narcissists, not to excuse their behaviors or to tolerate it, but to pray for them, to pray for their healing, to pray that whatever demonic influence has taken over, that it gets released from them so that they can be set free too. I know some of this might not make any sense to people, but if you know, you know. Because sometimes what can happen is you might notice that people who have been abused suddenly become abusers. And I've seen it. I've seen certain patterns in myself, which is why I learned that I needed support on my journey too, working with a therapist, really understanding who I am before all these other patterns were adopted and ingrained. And also seeing it in other people too, seeing people who have gone through years of abuse then start acting in a certain way, which is like watching someone someone who got bullied then become the bully. And that's not what we're being asked to become either. We're truly asked to be light workers of God's kingdom, to stand in truth. And truth doesn't separate people, right? Truth doesn't mean, oh, we look at the narcissist and be like, bye. It doesn't mean we take their stuff. We don't just sit there and be like, oh yeah, dump it on me because, I understand you have some deep-seated wounds that you're dealing with. No, we're not oblivious to things, but we're also not doormats. And we treat ourselves with kindness and love because we know that we are an extension of God's creation, his creative potential. And knowing that, why would God ever want anyone to disrespect his creation? And that's part of our humanity, because a lot of us in our humanity, we do tend to project. That's human nature. We project, we hurt people. And I know a lot of times we don't want to hear this, that, we are sinners or that we're guilty and all these things. And again, I don't necessarily believe in everything about Christianity or any religion for that matter. But I do know that all religions are tied to one source, to God, and to love. If you want to take it a step deeper, it's really love. All these teachings are about how can we love one another? How can we love God first and foremost, and then love one another, to share that love for another, the same love that we are being taught to love ourselves at that level, at that capacity. It doesn't mean anything if we can't share it with people. So I wanted to share that. And for anyone who feels that this cycle has been so challenging for you, I truly pray that you are able to see the light. I pray that God is able to intervene in your life in the way that he would, according to his will, in his perfect timing, to help you break that cycle and to do it in peace and love for all parties involved, and to move on in peace, in his peace, and to know that healthy relationships are your birthright. It is your birthright as a child of God. Everyone deserves to be treated with kindness and respect and love. The last thing I'll share before ending this is for you to know that, again, I just want to reiterate one more time, no matter what your story has been, no matter how much any cycle has taken a hold over your life, today is a new day. Right now is a new moment. And you have the power to invite in a new story and let God work through you to redeem himself. To not that he needs to redeem himself, not that we need him to prove himself, but more so that he can redeem himself through you, so that people can see what kind of positive transformation can happen, what kind of beautiful reality can set in when we surrender, when we truly believe in our faith, even when we don't have evidence as to why we believe. And continuing to be that example of true, authentic light, to spread goodness, to spread kindness on this planet, compassion and love and beauty and joy, to love another, to love ourselves the way God loves us. And as we do that, we're able to have more compassion for people, even those who haven't treated us well. And we can let go in peace and in forgiveness, knowing that God has forgiven us for so much. He has had mercy on us. So we can let that flow through us and let that peace just wash away whatever was, what no longer exists, so that the beautiful rose that is blossoming through can shine through you, that beautiful light, love. Also, the way the astronauts were able to share so beautifully, so poetically, being so far from the earth. I just feel like that was such a powerful and beautiful example that humanity can follow. And I know for me personally, I've been so deeply inspired by that. If any of this landed with you, I really pray that it opens your heart so that true healing of your spirit can begin, all through the power of God. And that you can go directly to God. You can go directly to source and ask for whatever you want, and just also be open to miracles, knowing that sometimes we don't even know what to ask for, and yet God will still show up, because that's how good he is. That's how merciful he is. He can do that. And so I pray for miracles and blessings for everyone watching this, for all of us, and for our beautiful planet, for humanity, and for all beings, for the cosmos and beyond, for heaven and earth, for heaven on earth. If this message resonated with you, I kindly ask that you share it with someone else that you feel can also use this message. And I pray that you are also, when you overcome this, if this has been something that's impacted you, please don't be afraid to share your story, to express yourself, and be the way shower for someone else who may need to hear that message as well, and perhaps from you. Thank you, and God bless you.